Something huge just happened in the Blake Lively legal saga and nobody saw it coming. In a stunning courtroom twist that has sent shockwaves across Hollywood and the internet, one of the key defendants in this highly publicized legal battle has just been dismissed from the case. Yes, you heard that right, dismissed. And while Blake Lively and her legal team may be trying to downplay the damage, the truth is this changes everything. What was once shaping up to be a tightly controlled courtroom offensive from Lively is now unraveling in real time. And this dismissal could mark the beginning of a much bigger collapse. This isn't just about one procedural ruling or a technical loophole. This is a powerful signal from the judge that parts of Lively's case simply don't hold up. And in a legal war as high profile and as strategic as this one, every move matters. Blake Lively came into this battle with the weight of celebrity wealth and media influence on her side. She had an army of lawyers, a PR machine, and the sympathy of fans. But now that armor is starting to crack, and once a judge dismisses a defendant, the rest of the case comes under renewed scrutiny. What exactly went wrong and how much more could fall apart for months? This case has captivated audiences with a mixture of Hollywood glitz and legal drama. Allegations, subpoenas, confidential leaks, every detail has been dissected in the public square. But this dismissal, it hits differently. It signals that Lively's legal strategy may be built on shaky ground. And if one defendant can be dismissed, who's next? Could more pieces of the puzzle fall out of place? Could this be the moment when Blake loses control of her narrative? Social media is ablaze. Hashtags are trending, legal experts are scrambling to analyze the implications. And Blake's critics are celebrating this moment as a symbolic and strategic loss. This is no longer just about Blake Lively versus a few online voices or former colleagues. It's now about how far a celebrity can go before the justice system says enough. It's about whether influence and image can overcome due process. And perhaps most explosively, it's about the possibility that the truth isn't what Blake Lively has been telling us. Justin Baldoni and others tied to this story are likely watching this unfold with growing confidence. This dismissed defendant may represent more than a legal technicality. It may be the first person to successfully step away from a case that many believe should never have been filed in the first place. What message does that send to others who feel they were unfairly targeted? And what message does it send to Blake herself? Make no mistake, this is not the end of the story, but it is a major turning point. And if what we've just seen is any indication, the road ahead for Blake Lively could be far more turbulent than she ever imagined. Buckle up, because this is just the beginning. The courtroom was thick with tension, the kind that builds slowly but crashes like thunder in an unexpected yet defining moment. The judge dropped a ruling that turned everything on its head. A defendant in Blake Lively's case had been dismissed. The silence that followed was more revealing than any outburst. Eyes darted toward Lively, whose composed exterior masked the deep jolt this decision must have triggered. Her attorneys scrambled, whispering and shuffling papers, attempting to comprehend what had just happened. But the truth was now glaring. This wasn't just a minor hurdle. It was a critical blow to a legal strategy that had been playing out aggressively in public view. For weeks, the courtroom had been the epicenter of a scandal that reached far beyond legal filings. This wasn't just about who was right or wrong, it was about control, narrative, reputation, and power. Blake Lively, once praised for her graceful public image, had stepped into a storm she may not have fully anticipated. And now her team's courtroom tactics were facing scrutiny, not just from lawyers, but from the world watching online. To grasp the gravity of this moment, we have to rewind and understand how this courtroom bombshell came to be. This wasn't a lawsuit that appeared out of nowhere. It was the crescendo of months of tension, speculation, and a PR crisis born from an unlikely source. The movie It Ends With Us, what was supposed to be a celebrated adaptation of a best-selling novel, had become a cultural flashpoint. Behind the scenes, whispers, creative disagreements, and internet commentary had swirled into something bigger, a battleground for truth and spin. The trouble began when rumors leaked that tensions were running high between Blake Lively and director Justin Baldoni during production. Those rumors were fanned by leaked screenshots, commentary videos, and fan speculation that something was deeply wrong behind the scenes. The internet was flooded with videos from content creators questioning the delays, casting decisions, and internal conflicts that reportedly plagued the film's development. At first, it looked like the usual Hollywood gossip mill, but soon, things took a darker turn. Rather than ignore the chatter or address it through conventional PR means, Blake Lively's legal team launched a sweeping legal campaign. Subpoenas were issued targeting a wide net of individuals: YouTubers, independent journalists, film critics, and even a few social media users who had commented on the controversy. The goal seemed clear: silence the noise and put the lid back on a pot that had boiled over. But almost immediately there were whispers that this legal strategy was risky, perhaps even reckless. Public perception didn't align with Lively's legal maneuvers. Many began to wonder, was this really about protecting reputation? Or was it about silencing fair criticism? Critics accused her team of overreach, of using the legal system not as a shield but as a sword. The internet was abuzz with terms like SLAPP suit and legal intimidation. And through it all, content creators began to push back, refusing to stay quiet, defending their rights to free expression and calling the court filings chilling. One defendant in particular, an experienced commentary creator known for analyzing Hollywood trends, decided to fight back hard. They filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that their content was protected speech based on public information and within the bounds of media commentary. Their legal filing didn't mince words. It stated that Blake Lively's team had failed to demonstrate any actual harm or malicious intent, and that naming them in the case was both unfair and unconstitutional. And then the judge agreed. The dismissal of this defendant marked a turning point that no one could ignore. The court made it clear that the standards required to sue someone for defamation or conspiracy weren't met. In short, the content in question wasn't defamatory, it was commentary, it was opinion. It was protected. The implications were immediate and far-reaching. First and foremost, this was a direct blow to Blake Lively's legal strategy. What had once been framed as a strong and sweeping crackdown now looked flawed and overambitious. The judge's decision poked a hole in the narrative that Lively's team had so carefully crafted. Suddenly, it wasn't just about whether she could win, it was about whether her legal foundation was even sound. Legal experts weighed in quickly. One entertainment attorney wrote, "This kind of dismissal sends a message. It means the court is saying, you can't just drag someone into court because you don't like what they said online." Another noted that this decision could serve as a precedent for other defendants named in the case. If this creator's commentary was protected, it opens the door for others to argue the same. "We might be looking at a domino effect," she said. What's important to understand is that the court didn't dismiss the case because of a procedural error or technicality. It did so based on the merits. That matters. It means the judge saw through the accusations and recognized the broader implications of punishing content creators for analysis and criticism. And the reaction, immediate, explosive, uplifting for some. The internet responded with a mixture of relief, celebration, and of course memes. Twitter lit up with hashtags like #BlakeLivelyLoss and #FreeTheCommentary. YouTubers who had been covering the lawsuit began posting victory videos, breaking down the dismissal line by line. One particularly viral clip featured a creator holding up the court ruling and saying, "This changes everything." TikTok creators joined in too, with reaction videos playing audio from the judge's ruling, like it was a pop anthem. Reddit threads dissected every word, while lawyers on YouTube called the dismissal a win for fair speech. The cultural moment had shifted. Lively's legal campaign, once a calculated effort to suppress controversy, now looked like a cautionary tale. What's more, the shift is being felt not just in courtrooms but in Hollywood boardrooms as well. Executives and producers, especially those involved with the now controversial It Ends With Us project, are reportedly growing concerned about the optics. Lively's involvement in the film had once been viewed as an asset. Now it's being questioned as a liability. Behind the scenes, PR firms are likely in damage control mode. Image consultants, once silent, are now whispering about the need for a recalibration. And while Blake Lively hasn't made a public statement yet, her team's silence is beginning to speak volumes, because when a court says that your lawsuit doesn't hold water, the press release you planned suddenly feels irrelevant. But this dismissal doesn't just affect one lawsuit or one celebrity. It touches on something much deeper, something cultural. In an age where social media has given rise to independent commentary, the boundaries between journalism, entertainment, and free speech have become blurry. Content creators, many of whom operate without corporate backing, are shaping public opinion in real time. And celebrities who once had the luxury of controlled PR channels are being forced to navigate a landscape where criticism is fast, viral, and often impossible to silence. Blake Lively's case was one of the most high-profile examples of a celebrity trying to fight back. And this dismissal may now become one of the most high-profile examples of how that can backfire. Of course, the case isn't over. Other defendants remain, other motions are still pending. But this decision is a crack in the armor, and it could widen. Already, lawyers representing other creators are pointing to this ruling as justification for their own dismissal motions. And if the court continues to rule in their favor, the entire lawsuit could begin to collapse. And what about Blake's image? That's harder to measure, but no less important. Her brand was built on poise, charm, and control. This lawsuit has shown a different side, one that is more aggressive, more combative, and in the eyes of many more damaging. The very act of trying to silence critics has given them a louder platform. As the dust settles from this courtroom shakeup, one thing is clear. This dismissal isn't just a legal moment, it's a cultural one. It's about who gets to speak, who gets to challenge power, and what happens when someone tries to shut that down. For Blake Lively, it's a moment that marks a sharp pivot. What began as a fight for control is now a fight to recover. And with the public watching more closely than ever, the path forward will be anything but easy. The courtroom dismissal may have been the first visible sign of collapse, but behind the scenes the real unraveling had already begun, with the judge's decision echoing across newsrooms, social media feeds, and legal circles. Blake Lively's tightly guarded public image began to show signs of fracture. It wasn't just a legal loss, it was the opening of a floodgate, one that PR teams dread and tabloids feed on. And for someone who had built a career on poise and composure, this storm was the kind that couldn't be brushed off with a photo op or a carefully curated Instagram post. Blake's legal strategy, once viewed by some insiders as bold and innovative, had turned into a full-blown PR liability. For months her team had controlled the media cycle with a mix of exclusives off the record, backgrounding, and strategic silence. But now journalists were no longer relying on controlled messaging. They were relying on public court documents, legal analysts, and reactions from fellow celebrities to tell the story, and the story wasn't flattering. Almost overnight, headlines began to shift from curiosity to critique. Where once there were questions like what really happened behind the scenes of It Ends With Us, there were now sharp assertions. Blake Lively's legal case falls apart. Judge tosses case against creator, and even is Blake weaponizing the legal system against free speech? For her public relations team, this was a five-alarm fire. In Hollywood, where reputation is currency, losing control of the narrative can be as damaging as losing a lawsuit. PR insiders began whispering about internal chaos, crisis meetings, strategy overhauls, and calls to veteran consultants known for handling damage control after major celebrity scandals. One PR source speaking anonymously described the mood as borderline panic, revealing that team members were split over whether to issue a statement or stay silent. Some believe silence equals dignity, others think it's making her look worse. But nobody expected the ruling to come down this hard, and now the entire legal campaign is under review. The problem wasn't just the ruling, it was the fact that the public had already picked a side. And in this case, that side wasn't with Blake. Adding fuel to the fire were whispers of tension within Lively's own camp. Legal consultants brought in during the early days of the lawsuit were reportedly clashing with her entertainment attorneys, some of whom had pushed for a much more aggressive approach. According to one source familiar with the case, there was an internal debate early on about whether to go after commentary creators at all. There were definitely voices saying this will backfire, this isn't worth the PR fallout. But those voices were ignored, the source claimed. Now in hindsight, those warnings appear prescient. And then came the ripple through Hollywood itself. Blake's decision to pursue legal action against content creators, some of whom had simply voiced speculative commentary, sent a chill through parts of the entertainment industry. Actors, directors, and producers began to wonder what this could mean for press freedom and the open discussion of art and performance. One director, also speaking off the record, said this sets a dangerous tone. If actors start suing every commentator who doesn't like their project, where does it end? But perhaps the most buzzed about reaction wasn't from Hollywood at large, it was from Taylor Swift. Though Taylor has remained publicly silent on the case, insiders claim she's been paying close attention. The pop icon, known for being fiercely protective of her image and her friends, has reportedly been distancing herself from the courtroom spectacle. According to a source close to Swift's camp, Taylor didn't sign up for this. She's all about empowerment and expression. Seeing commentary creators targeted this way isn't something she supports. This information comes at a delicate time. Swift and Lively have long maintained a close friendship, often appearing together at public events and vacations. But lately, fans have noticed a noticeable absence. The last few weeks have seen Taylor attending major events without Blake by her side, a small detail but one fans have dissected deeply. Speculation intensified when Taylor liked a tweet by a well-known journalist discussing the importance of media freedom. The tweet made no direct reference to Blake's case, but the timing raised eyebrows. Was it a subtle message, a shift in loyalty? Nothing has been confirmed, but in a fandom as observant as Swift's, nothing goes unnoticed. While these are merely theories, the point remains: Blake's case is beginning to alienate not just commentators but potentially allies as well. Meanwhile, content creators are continuing to reclaim the narrative. Instead of backing down, many are doubling down. One YouTuber who was subpoenaed posted a 90-minute documentary-style breakdown of the entire lawsuit, highlighting the dismissed defendant's victory and framing it as a pivotal moment in creator rights. The video amassed over 2 million views in 48 hours, with the comments filled with praise, support, and promises to keep the conversation going. Reddit threads continue to explode with user-generated timelines, court filing analyses, and even speculation on who might be dismissed next. Some creators have banded together, forming informal alliances to crowdsource legal advice and amplify each other's coverage. The message is clear: they won't be intimidated. And this pushback is beginning to catch the eye of legal watchdogs. Advocacy organizations focused on digital rights and free speech have begun discussing the case in webinars and op-eds. Several have reached out to creators involved, offering support and even legal assistance. The case, originally intended to chill speech, is now becoming a rallying cry. What started as a legal move has now become a cultural moment, and all of it reflects back on Blake Lively. Producers tied to her upcoming projects are starting to ask difficult questions. Can she headline a press tour while embroiled in a lawsuit that's growing more unpopular by the day? Can she promote a story of emotional healing and vulnerability while appearing to suppress critical voices? These aren't minor concerns. They're existential for any celebrity balancing commercial and creative ambitions. Behind closed doors, Blake is reportedly struggling with the scope of the backlash. Friends say she had expected a few tough headlines, but not a full-scale internet revolt. One acquaintance claimed she really thought this would be quick: get the leaks out of circulation, shut down the lies, and move on. But that's not what happened. And now she doesn't know how to pivot, and pivoting won't be easy. Any public statement could reignite the controversy. Any silence risks being interpreted as guilt or arrogance. Every option is a trap. This is the paradox of celebrity legal warfare. Once a lawsuit becomes a public event, it stops being a purely legal affair and becomes a story, one that's shaped by perception more than precedent. As we move deeper into this unfolding drama, it's important to understand how fragile power can be in a digital age. Just one dismissed defendant, one courtroom ruling, one meme gone viral, and the entire foundation starts to shake. For Blake Lively, that shake is now a tremor. Whether it grows into a full collapse depends on what happens next. But one thing is undeniable: the mask of control has slipped, and the world is watching. The shockwaves from the court's decision were still rippling when yet another aftershock hit, this time not from the courthouse, but from the heart of Hollywood's production circuit. Behind the glossy trailers and designer red carpets, Blake Lively's upcoming film projects began to feel the heat of mounting controversy. The dismissal of a defendant wasn't just a headline, it was a message. One that producers, financiers, and publicists could no longer ignore. And in an industry that runs on perception, even the illusion of instability can cause people to pull away. Executives attached to it. Ends with Us were already under pressure. The film had gone from a celebrated adaptation of Colleen Hoover's mega-popular novel to a PR nightmare riddled with speculation, leaked call sheets, and now legal overreach. What had been hailed as a romantic drama with real emotional weight was now saddled with the baggage of courtroom tension and First Amendment debates. And that shift in tone is affecting everything from marketing strategy to international distribution talks. One source inside a major streaming service said their interest in acquiring rights to the film had cooled in recent weeks. "We're being cautious," the source said. "There's just too much noise around the project right now. The legal stuff, the fan backlash, even the way creators are responding, none of it helps build anticipation. It creates risk. That risk is especially potent when it involves a public figure like Blake Lively, whose reputation was once considered bulletproof. For years, she was seen as one of the rare celebrities who could balance fame, family, and fashion with a sense of authenticity. But the lawsuit, coupled with the court's rejection of part of her legal strategy, has complicated that narrative, and brands are paying attention. According to insiders in the fashion and lifestyle industry, to brand campaigns that were set to feature Blake have now quietly paused production. While no one has issued a public statement, it's clear that decision makers are reevaluating their associations. In an age where image is everything, even the perception of controversy can be enough to delay a major rollout. As one brand consultant put it, "We're in a moment where alignment matters." And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty around Blake's direction. Meanwhile, the creator community continues to push forward, louder and more unified than ever. In the wake of the dismissal, commentary channels that had remained silent out of fear began speaking up. One mid-sized film critic, previously subpoenaed in the case, posted a video titled "I Was Targeted by Blake Lively's team. Now I'm telling my side." The video quickly climbed into trending categories across multiple platforms, not because it was Sensational, but because it was honest. The creator laid out their timeline, explained how the subpoena had impacted their mental health, and voiced gratitude for the court's decision to dismiss another defendant. "I didn't make my videos to cause harm," they said. "I made them because I love movies. I analyze what works, what doesn't, and sometimes that includes what's happening behind the scenes. But never in my life did I expect to get served with legal papers just for doing that." Their story resonated and more began to follow. Smaller creators came forward with screenshots, emails, and court documents showing the scope of how widely Blake's legal team had cast their net. And what emerged wasn't a picture of careful legal precision, it was a portrait of overreach. Forums and communities that once focused on pop culture turned their attention toward digital rights and the limits of celebrity power. Suddenly, the conversation shifted from what happened on the It Ends With Us set to what are the consequences of celebrity-driven legal campaigns in the age of social media. And at the center of all this, an unexpected figure remained curiously quiet: Justin Baldoni. Baldoni, who had once been rumored to be at odds with Blake Lively during production, had chosen a markedly different path. While Blake's team pursued subpoenas and courtroom escalation, Baldoni's camp remained largely silent, carefully distant from the legal conflict spiraling in the media. But make no mistake, his silence was strategic. Industry insiders suggest Baldoni has taken a watch-and-wait approach. One associate said Justin's not interested in a public feud. He wants the work to speak for itself, but don't confuse silence with weakness. He's watching everything, and if the opportunity comes to clear his name more forcefully, he won't hesitate. Some even believe Baldoni's team is quietly preparing for a moment of vindication. With the legal tide turning and Blake's side facing growing scrutiny, the door is now open for Baldoni to reassert himself, not just as a director wrongfully blamed, but as a professional who kept his integrity intact while chaos unfolded around him. What's even more telling is how the public is beginning to revise their understanding of the original conflict. Early narratives painted both Blake and Justin as locked in creative disagreements, with neither side fully transparent. But now the focus is shifting. More and more people are starting to ask, was Baldoni trying to steer the ship, while Blake's team tried to control the storm? Adding to that sentiment are recent comments from former crew members, some of whom have anonymously told journalists that the set environment was more complex than previously reported. One former assistant director said there were definitely disagreements, but Justin tried to keep things collaborative. A lot of the tension came from the top and not his top. Of course, these claims remain unverified, but in the court of public opinion, they're powerful, especially when juxtaposed against Blake's increasingly embattled legal campaign. Meanwhile, legal analysts are continuing to break down the judge's ruling that dismissed the defendant. On multiple legal YouTube channels, professionals are dissecting the opinion line by line, offering insight into why the court found Blake's case lacking and what it means for the remaining defendants. One key takeaway: the court was unimpressed by the broadness of the allegations. You can't just say someone's commentary is harmful, one lawyer explained. You have to prove it's false, made with malice, and caused measurable damage. That's a high bar, and this judge clearly didn't think it was met. That's a dangerous precedent for Blake's team, at least, because if that bar wasn't met for one creator, it may not be met for others. Which leads to the next big question: will more defendants be dismissed? The answer seems increasingly likely to be yes. In fact, some creators are already preparing motions of their own using the first dismissal as a legal template. A lawyer representing another content creator confirmed on social media that they're finalizing paperwork and will be citing the previous dismissal extensively. It's a bold move, and one that could dismantle the legal case piece by piece. And as these motions progress, the media narrative will likely keep evolving. Already, writers are beginning to frame the story as part of a larger shift, one where celebrities are being forced to confront the power of decentralized media. For decades, stars controlled their image through glossy interviews, magazine profiles, and studio promotions, but now independent commentators have become just as influential, sometimes more, and this new reality demands a new kind of response. Blake's initial strategy may have been built on the old model: control the message, suppress the dissent. But the digital world doesn't work that way anymore. Today, trying to silence creators can make them louder. Trying to hide court documents can make them go viral. Trying to shut down commentary can start a movement. What we're witnessing now is a moment of reckoning, not just for Blake Lively, but for a system of image management that no longer functions the way it used to. And as this story continues to unfold, all eyes will remain fixed not just on the next legal filing, but on how Blake, her team, and the entire industry respond. Because if the goal was to make the story go away, this dismissal has done the exact opposite. As the dust settles on this shocking development, one thing has become crystal clear. This is not the outcome Blake Lively or her legal team had anticipated. The dismissal of the defendant has sent tremors throughout the legal and entertainment communities, raising serious questions not only about the strength of Lively's case, but also about the strategies employed to pursue it. What was initially seen as a carefully controlled campaign to assert dominance over a spiraling narrative has now backfired in dramatic fashion. And while this moment marks a significant procedural loss, the larger implications may be even more damaging. For starters, this dismissal isn't just a legal technicality. It's a massive blow to the credibility of Blake Lively's claims. If the court found insufficient cause to keep this defendant tethered to the proceedings, it suggests foundational weaknesses in the accusations themselves. And if that foundation is crumbling, it raises broader questions about whether the case can sustain itself moving forward. Public perception, already strained by weeks of intense scrutiny, is now likely to take an even darker turn. In the court of public opinion, losing key parts of a case is tantamount to losing the entire narrative. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni and his team are watching these developments unfold with what must be growing confidence. Every dropped charge, every dismissed defendant, and every misstep by Lively's legal squad contributes to a mounting sense that the tide is turning in their favor. For Baldoni, this isn't just about clearing his name, it's about regaining control over the narrative, rebuilding professional momentum, and perhaps most importantly, demonstrating that he will not be intimidated into silence. This, when though indirect, could serve as a vital moment of vindication for him, and it may embolden others connected to this legal storm to speak out or challenge similar legal tactics. As for the public, the reaction has been a mix of shock, curiosity, and even a sense of vindication.